My name is Brian Brewer with Liberty University Worship 501, Dynamics of Corporate Worship. I'm here with worship leaders Jonathan Nelson and Tiffany Boone. Are you full-time employees with New Birth?
Yes.
Yes.
So, first, let me say thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
And two, I am not a full-time employee. I'm a contractor here.
Okay.
But I'm still full-time, if that makes any sense.
Okay, so explain contracting with New Birth.
So, in this setting, for me, I didn't have a need for like benefits, health insurance, and that, because I already had my own plan.
Okay.
So I came in under that way because for me, business-wise, it was just a better option for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and explain your full-time duties.
So, office hours, coming in normally, probably Monday, Tuesday. I created my off days Wednesday, and Thursday, and some Fridays. And then, to be honest with you, is whenever I can be here, I'm here. Like some Saturdays I'm here, Sundays after church I'm still here. So.
And may I also interject? We don't really have office hours like that.
True.
Because we spend hours on the phone,
Right.
literally planning service.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, when I say hours,
Almost every day.
no, for real.
Yeah.
Okay.
Seriously.
Okay. Would you give an overview of your educational background and experience?
So my education was really, the only musical education I had was chorus in high school. Other than that, I've been in some administrative work, working in the secular area of Dillard's. I worked for Dillard's as a customer service representative. And just really in the customer service area, I've been in church all of my life. My father's a bishop now, but when I was born, I've just been in church. So it's kind of like a learned behavior. So yeah, that's kind of my experience. I've sung with a lot of different artists as well, so experience there.
So, experience-wise, I went to Baltimore School for the Arts for high school, and I went to Morgan State University. I studied under Dr. Nathan Carter, the late Dr. Nathan Carter, at School for the Arts, and then I also he was the reason why I went to Morgan. My area of focus was vocal performance and music education. Unfortunately, I'm talking to a college student, the one thing that I did not do, and I know they say live life without regrets, the one thing that I didn't do experience-wise is I did not stay to get my degree. I found a job in corporate America, and they started throwing all of this money towards me, and I started, matriculating to that process. And so music has always been a part of me because my dad too is a bishop. My father's been a pastor since I was 3. He's retired now, but he still travels and doing ministry. So the one thing I wish I had done is gotten my degree. However, through my experience as an artist, it's almost as if I've gotten that, like a doctoral program, you know what I mean? From church experiences, I used to play at my dad's church, used to play organ at my dad's church. Of course, I'm a gospel artist, and long story short, I was at a conference with my father. We had Karen Clark Sheard there around 99, 2000, and that really is where the gospel industry piece experience started coming to my life. So while I was there doing the background for Karen, a team that I put together, Ted Wynn from Ted and Sherry was in the building. So he came and introduced himself to me. I then started doing some background for him. After Ted Wynn, Ted introduced me to Donald Lawrence, and my life kind of really took a turn at that point. So 99, 2000, beyond school, that experience really shifted me to doing this.
All right, my next question is, what is your commitment to worship, personal and corporate?
Good question. My commitment, my prayer life, I consider it to be very strong. I make sure I pray even if my eyes aren't closed. And I make time to, at home, like I literally go into my walk-in closet, I shut the door, turn the lights off, and I take time to pray. Because this assignment is a great one. It's not just about the platform, but it's souls, and this church is in the process of healing through transitions and everything, and so we can't come here and be a celebrity. Jonathan and I were speaking one time before, and we were saying we don't have an opportunity to have a bad day. So all of my bad days go right in that closet, and I take it to God in prayer, literally, so that when I come here, I'm ready for whatever I need to be prepared for.
Mine too is daily. First of all, I'm committed to my walk with Christ. I learned about God through watching my dad. And when I think of a Christian, and when I think of commitment to God and to His work and to His service, I look at my father. He is my shining example, of which I'm trying to rise to be like him. And we've always been a family of prayer, a family that is committed to the Word. I tell him all the time, I feel like I'm turning into my father, because you can't have a conversation with him without him giving chapter, book, verse. I mean, he's going to tell you where it is. My father's like a walking Bible, and he's not going to have a conversation without the Word coming forth. And I aspire to be like that, because I inspire people. So I aspire to be like my dad. So it really is, and because I'm a traveling artist as well, and I live almost in airplanes and hotels, I really do have to be proactive about reading my word. I was reading in Hebrews yesterday, the word being sharper than any two-edged sword. I told the Lord, I said, Lord, I want your word to be in me so heavily that it becomes alive, that literally when I'm moving and I'm operating, I'm doing it based on what the word says. You know what I mean? And so that is my level of commitment to God, but also to my life. So I can't, not to go too deep into it, but how can you be a worshiper, and how can you truly worship God if you don't know who He is?
Right.
And His identity helps you to know what your identity is, but His identity is the Word. So that is why I'm challenging myself to go deeper, to get to know Him, to recognize His voice and recognize His Word.
All right. My next question is, how do you describe your philosophy in music? So that's as an artist and as a worship leader.
Well, philosophy meaning the thought process. I feel, okay, so my philosophy of church, not just music, is based on the way I was raised. So initially, my experience is a Pentecostal experience. My philosophy has changed over the years because of my experience. So I've been knowing Pastor Jamal Bryant most of my life, since we were teenagers. He would come to our services, and at this time, he would come to us, but we weren't even allowed to go over to an AME church, because I grew up Apostolic Pentecostal, and so it was our way or no way, right? But when he was pastoring Empowerment Temple in Baltimore, I watched him go to different places to preach. I would listen to his critique, because he was a little rough for me back then, but not in a way that was negative. He was really trying to stretch me. So my philosophy has changed because of my experience, and I feel like there is a way that everybody can be reached at the same time. So my philosophy and my approach, I guess you could say as well, to worship is to try to find a way to make this moment identifiable to everybody that's in the room, culturally as well as intergenerational.
I have to agree with Jonathan. I think my philosophy's changed once I got here, because as he's saying, you have to reach more than one generation. And so you have to have diversity in your music and your selection. So yeah, whatever I was thinking before, I feel like it was wrong, but I believe it definitely helped me get to, where I am here. But being here is totally different. It's not just one congregation. It's a congregation of all people. And we have to be everything to all people. So.
And also, to piggyback off of that, we're not just talking to this room.
Right.
Like, our streaming audience is insane.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that in a good way.
Right.
I think one Sunday, we had done a replay of the service, and within an hour we had 44,000 views. And people in the room,
right.
I'm not just talking to different generations, different cultures, I'm talking to people that I can't even see.
Right.
So whatever it is, my philosophy of music and my approach to worship, it has to be so inviting that the people that are watching want to be a part of the experience, and that they are moved, that they are blessed, that they are healed through the ministry of music and through the ministry of worship. So that's why I'm saying my philosophy is changed and it's changing. And I think it really is according to who I'm trying to reach and who I'm trying to speak to.
Okay. Good. All right. What steps do you take to prepare for the corporate worship?
The fun part.
So after we leave here, we're gonna get in our cars, and as we're driving home, we start talking about next week.
And we review what happened today.
Yes, that's true.
And then we come back together and say, could have did this differently. This was really good. And from that moment, we just continue with, the next week.
Okay.
Right. We also focus on the greatest. I have never worked with anybody, and I say this for the recording for you. I've never worked with a Tiffany. I've never had a counterpart like Tiffany. One, it's a great deal of honor and respect for each other. It's a mutual respect and honor for each other. But we just click.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We weren't. Pastor Brian assembled us.
Right.
It's like, okay, y'all can work together.
Right.
You know what I mean? So then we got to figure out, well, how am I gonna work with you? So we had to one, learn each other, but in the process of us learning each other, so it's a lot of talking behind the scenes, and but Pastor Bryant is turning the corner. You heard him today saying he kept saying intergenerational. That is his terminology here. So our challenge is in preparation is one, so that we can be aligned with him. So we'll ask him, okay, so we know, you heard him, the theme for the month is, praise and worship.
Intimacy and praise and worship.
Right, the intimacy. So our focus, approach-wise musically, is more on we've been leaning more on the worship side as it relates to slower songs, the intimacy, getting people to that place, using up-tempo to bring them in, and then we kind of switch it and transition to something a little differently at that point. But we're also trying to be thematic. So today, I don't know if you could tell, all of our songs were laced with love. This month, it's a lot into the planning of things, right? So Pastor has created the whole year in his mind in a manifesto. Ecclesiastes 3:1, a time to. So he just says it's a time to be different. So every month has a theme. January is a time to plant. This month is a time to love. So in order to stay in line with him, with the message, branding of the house, the theme, our songs they were all wrapped in love or some sort of way talking about love, with the exception of the word, the song we led before the word. And the audience, song selections, what else?
And it's not just the Sunday morning thing, it's a Tuesday night thing as well.
Okay, so you have service on Tuesdays.
Yes,
Right.
which is called group therapy, which is technically like a Bible study night,
Right.
but it's called group therapy.
Okay.
And we don't ever want the effect to change from a Sunday. And if it does change, we always want it to be greater. But yeah, preparation for us, it's extreme. It's extreme because it's not just about singing. It's about cameras. It's about the instruments. It's a lot that comes. It's about lighting,
Lyrics,
setting, right,
just a lot of
setting the
things.
atmosphere. All of that is included.
The services are planned in Planning Center.
Yes.
So if you have anything to do with the service, or if you're a leader, you have access to the service.
Okay.
Okay, and we can do real-time adjustments inside Planning Center.
That's awesome.
There's an app on that we use on our phone, and then we also print it out for those that don't have access to it, so that we all can see. We actually meet every Sunday morning at 8:45. Pretty much everybody that's on the program, we go through it to make sure everybody knows what's going on, because we're trying to keep a connected flow.
So in this room, the pastors and the leaders, but also our MD, lighting, production, sound, TV, and then we actually mix live for the internet. So all of those people in the room. So any adjustments that are made, all of the right voices and ears need to be in there. So when information is disseminated, we can all be on the same page.
Okay.
We also are in a group meeting, which updates live. We can talk live to each other. It's a lot of planning.
Yes.
Tiffany and I were talking yesterday. I was like, if people understood all the hours we put into just for an hour and a half to 2 hours of service weekly. But I have never been challenged like this. I absolutely, when I say I love it, because it's making me fresh. I think with worship and I think with church, when you talk about philosophy and just all that we're talking about as it relates to planning, I think that you won't have success if you don't challenge yourself to be your best self. And challenge yourself to be around people that are actually better than you. Now, this has nothing to do with getting up on stage. All of this, we'll be talking about, the philosophy change and all. This is not actually execution in that moment and getting to a deeper place of worship with God. This is just the behind the scenes. And may I add this, it was just dropped in my spirit. When Moses went up into the mountain and God gave him the blueprint for the tabernacle, that wasn't just the blueprint for tabernacle, it was a blueprint for worship, of which we still, and it was built in the shape of the cross and all of that, and just, you can't just go into the presence of the Lord any kind of way. You got to pass the brazen laver and the altar of the incense, etc., 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 right? So I feel like if God was so detail oriented, you have to oil your thumb, you got to oil your ear, you got to oil your big foot, your big toe. If God was so detail oriented, then I feel like we should give God that same level of detail behind the scenes, even if it's just for an hour and a half of church.
That's right.
It don't matter.
What terms would you describe your worship? So that would mean blended, contemporary, traditional, liturgical. What term would you consider it?
And I almost don't want to say it's one way. It's many ways, and we intentionally do it that way because we have multi-generations here at the church. So like today we'll include a hymn, but we started out, I guess you could say that's more contemporary.
Definitely.
And then, I don't know, we just try to make sure blended. So blended. We just try to make sure we blend it so we're not just catering to the millennials, but we got something for the seasoned ones too. And sometimes even on Sundays, like first Sundays, for us, that's like a choir Sunday. So we'll cater majority of our music from the choir, from a choir's perspective. And it's appreciated because the next Sunday may be something totally different. Next Sunday might be kids so it's just, we try to reach everybody. So I would definitely say blended.
For sure. No, I too would say blended. We here at New Birth, currently the majority of adults here are 50 and older. So you don't want to not talk to them,
Right.
but then you also want to appeal to. You would be a millennial, or are you Gen Z?
I guess I would be considered a
Millennial.
Okay, got you. And I know millennials don't like that identification. Most millennials don't. I understand that.
I guess I
get
don't.
that. But it's for station ID for this moment.
Right.
I know that because I'm not a millennial. I'm Gen X, I think I am, or I'm a Zennial or something like that. I'm Gen X or something like that. I mean, I'm right in the middle. But my interests lie in what is happening. Like, I need to make sure that what's happening, I'm engaged in.
Right.
The music has to be good. The singing has to be good. I want, and I'm not even talking, again, this is not even talking about the depths of worship. I'm just talking about just the bare basics, the blueprint, But I want our music to talk to you. And I'm not even talking about, again, the spiritual side, because I do believe that is a main ingredient. But I also wanted to talk to grandma that's sitting on the chair.
Right.
It's a mother that's coming, she's adopted me, her name is Mama Bug. I want music to talk to her.
Right.
You know what I mean? I want music to talk to my kid. My daughter is 13. If she's in church, I want her to be interested. And I'm like, oh my God, if they don't move on, you know what I'm saying? So the challenge is very big. It's a daunting task, but I think that we are finding the pulse. We have not perfected it in no way, shape, or form. But we're certainly under construction, if that makes any sense.
Do you have an education process in training your worship team or your worship leaders, or other worship leaders behind you, rather?
I don't think that we have that process in place.
Right.
What we have acquired Tiffany and I have not been here a solid year as a team.
Right.
In March, second Sunday March, it will be us being here together as a team. We have literally been building the template as we go. And I know that sounds really strange after you see what you've experienced. We didn't have a blueprint, we didn't have a template, we're literally building it. So our training is
From our own personal experience.
right? And then the team, so it's more hands-on. This is a more hands-on experience. This house is where we are now is more hands-on, but I do train the voices to sing in a style. When Pastor asked me to come, he asked me to come and he asked me to bring my flavor. So if you go back and listen to my records, I take time to teach my vocals how to interpret a song. So in rehearsals, I am taking time to interpret how I want them to say it. So sing it back to me. So there's certain sounds and whatnot that we're working on. But again, it is happening in the moment, I guess you could say. Even with the band, a lot of stuff okay, so what you experienced during Praise and Worship Day, a lot of that just happened in rehearsal. They didn't even have a band rehearsal. Everything happened in the midst of rehearsal. Mm-hmm. So it's a work in progress.
And some moments happen right in church. Like the Pass the Peace Better For You song, Jonathan wrote that in the church.
You heard that singing that today? So about 3 months ago, we have a new keyboard player. He's now an MB, David. He just started playing. Mm-hmm. Pastor said, turn to your neighbor and say, things are looking better. David just started playing this vibe. I just started singing. I did not fight for it. I just started saying, better for you. And everybody was like, whose song is this? We're making it now. Right. And so that has now become the tagline for our Pass the Peace, which is our greeting our visitors moment. And it's almost like, I don't know if you were really like digesting all of the moments. I know it was a lot that was happening, but it's like people really look forward to that.
Right.
It doesn't feel like, okay, you know how you go to church and be like, okay, here we go. It's the same song over and over again. But right now, and when the time is right, we'll move on to something else. But right now, that's like just the song of the house. It's like you can see people light up.
It's encouragement for them.
Yeah. So the house is getting it. So I don't know if you paid attention as well. I said, I don't know where you are. This message is for you too and at home. It's going to get better for you.
Right.
So we want to make sure that the experience here doesn't get lost. We want y'all to know what's going on too.
Right.
I like that. I like that. Relationship with the pastor look like? So do you plan the worship experience with him?
Well, to be honest, we have a pastor, and I love him for this, but he trusts us to do our jobs. Definitely Jonathan, because they've already worked together in the past, so he knows, of his works. But now we will ask him, maybe what's your theme, or what's the sermon looking like for this Sunday, and he'll give us the information that we need. But other than that, he just really allows us to do what we do. And he will critique or encourage either way. But yeah, he unapologetically lets us. We're always like, Pastor, what are you thinking about? It's like, it's whatever you want it to be. And that's appreciated, because you have a lot of pastors that are intimidated by the people that they hire, and they don't allow their gifts to flourish in the ministry. And so Pastor Brian is not that. He's not a micromanager. He will let you do what you do, and if he feels some type of way about it, he's gonna let you know. And if he loves it, he's gonna let you know.
I like that you said let the gift flourish.
Mm-hmm.
Speak to me a little bit more about that in terms of getting on stage, knowing exactly what the pastor has already laid out for you as far as whatever the service shall be, or that month like you're doing the intimacy of praise and worship. Lay that out for me.
So letting your gift flourish, definitely what comes to my mind right now is preparation. And that's time of prayer, studying, reading the Bible, actually listening to music, and then learning your pastor. Because we all have gifts, we all have anointings. And another thing is confidence as well. When you're approaching people, you understand what you're there for, what your purpose is. And I believe that if you open up, God will literally do whatever he needs to do, through you, not being arrogant. And then, like this platform, it's so easy to get beside yourself. There's cameras everywhere. People are always talking or, saying good things or whatever. But for me, it's humbling. And it always reminds me, nope, go back home, get on your face. You're never there yet. You stay a student, you always learn. And like Jonathan is my mentor. So I'm always like a sponge taking everything in. But it's really, I feel confident. I feel confident with Jonathan. And then when Jonathan is not here, he's still texting me. He's still watching on stream. Hey, this song is in this key. But I love it so much. Like, people have no idea how this for me is a learning experience. Because I don't believe this is my end. But for wherever I'm going next, I believe I'm gonna be well prepared.
And let me also add to, as it relates to flourishing, so Pastor gave Tiffany and I the assignment, the timeline is in your hands.
Mm-hmm.
So we were thinking like he wanted us to do it his way. No, he's like, do away with everything that you know and give me something.
Mm-hmm.
So weekly we come up with the flow of service. And Pastor puts himself inside it. He'll make some adjustments here and there, but for the most part, he will not make any changes, any major
Right.
changes to the program. That's why I'm like, we have to talk
Right.
weekly, because we set the flow up, and then we now have a new executive pastor. So the three of us really kind of go through the program of what kind of needs to be on there. We map it out, and then we start building all of the pieces and all the things around it. Incidentally, the one thing when you started talking about flourishing, how dealing with pastor also causes you to flourish, because he doesn't micromanage, and because he does trust you, it makes you. I think it makes you want to do your job even better because he trusts you.
Right.
And I think that is what causes one to flourish. Another thing for Tiffany is, the one thing that I've challenged her in this way is because people have seen her in this one path.
Mm-hmm.
If they've seen her with Ricky Dillard, or if they've seen her with J.J. Harrison, or some of the other artists that she's worked with, the great artists that she's worked with, they see her as this particular individual. But Pastor sees what we can't even see.
Right.
So it's like the way he helped me to develop, and I don't even know if how much he helped me develop. He too sees that in Tiffany. So one of the examples is okay. All right. So building the model of the service, right? So I'm teaching Tiffany not to be just who people expect her to be, but show
Right.
them that there's a different side of you.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very strong administrative anointing in her life, and Pastor recognizes it. So when we get in the meetings, he'll say, Tiffany, tell us what we're doing today.
Mm-hmm.
So Tiffany, she got nervous. She's like, Jonathan. I was like, but what he's doing is he's teaching her and training her how to have conversations with people outside of your spectrum, and he's also teaching you how to talk to people in leadership.
Right.
So when you get up from this table, this round table, you'll be able to talk. If Bishop Jake's at the table, you'll have that same level of confidence,
That's right.
and you won't waver because you know how to do your job. That's one,
Mm-hmm.
but you also will know how to have a conversation in a room with people that are power players.
Right.
So that is another way that he's caused both of us, specifically Tiffany, to flourish.
Most definitely. When I first got here, in my head, I thought I was the worship leader. And so he gave me the title of Minister of Music. So I've seen people operate in that, in that title, but I've never really, you see them do little things here and there. But as Jonathan says, Pastor sees what we don't see. So from the first day to today, I have really grown. Like I'm doing a lot, a lot here. But I love it. But it's just, I never imagined myself being in the capacity and doing the things that I'm doing. And so it's a blessing. It's a blessing.
That's awesome. You guys are hitting like some really, really key points. So you guys talked about mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
I know specifically you said mentor. So I kind of want to veer off just for a quick second. Talk to me. What does mentoring look like, and what does it sound like? I know that you said that the pastor will put himself inside of kind of your organization of what the flow of worship should be.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, what do you desire for as far as mentorship?
Can I speak as a mentor first?
Sure.
And then maybe she can talk about what she desires or needs from me. So if I'm going back in the Word and I'm dealing with Elijah and Elisha was plowing, Elijah walked by. And as he walked by, he put his mantle on him.
Right.
So for me, when I think of mentoring, I'm thinking of mantle passing. And there's another scripture in Acts, I believe it's 4, silver and gold have I none, such as I have given unto thee, right? King James Version, all right? And so for me, I feel like, I'm going back to the very first rehearsal. I don't know, it might have been in February or something like that. My very first rehearsal here, Tiffany walked up to me and was like, you are my mentor. Now, in that moment, I'm thinking like, no, I'm not. Well, and because my reservation was because of other things, she works with other artists and whatnot, and so I'm like, well, those who are supposed to be speaking into your life. But when we started working together, I realized how much value I have, and how much value I can place on her, and how much I can help her to develop, in whatever area. there's a lot of experience I have learned as an artist. There's a lot of experience I've learned as a worship leader. And so I am unselfish in passing or placing my mantle on Tiffany, in a sense of me exhausting every piece of information that I have. There are times I don't even know what I'm supposed to give until we hit a scenario. And then when I hit the scenario, I'll just pour into her. And I'll say, hey, I would kind of do it this way now, but you figure it out and do it your way. But I will kind of go in this direction, and you can tweak it and you can make it what you need it to be. But as a mentor, that's what I'm supposed to do. And I also serve as like a GPS for her, in a sense. Because if you do go in the wrong direction, then it is my responsibility to turn you in a direction that would definitely benefit you. Okay? I'm giving this example, Tiffany. I'm not going to talk too much, right? Yes. But so, remember when the lights went out during the revival, right? Mm-hmm. So, I told Tiffany, I said, here's a teachable moment. So Tiffany was leading worship and she was going for it. Pastor cut her down to 5 minutes, but the clock wasn't working. Tiffany she went over the time, but it wasn't too big of a deal. But the teachable moment is we have to have laser focus. Like Tiffany and I got to know where each other are. Right. We got to know where MD is. But the one thing that we can never take our eyes off of or feel the pulse of Pastor. Mm-hmm. So I told Tiffany, I said, Pastor was walking up, he had his mic, but you didn't. First of all, the lights were a little dim and it was a spotlight on her. But her GPS wasn't on in that sense. Mm-hmm. So I rattled her GPS so that no matter if the lights are off, start looking through the crowd. You know what I mean?
That's right.
If you got to do what you got to do to make sure you find Pastor, because you want to watch his body language. You want to make sure you don't want to go over time. I mean, and if you watch him and if you feel his body language, you can't go wrong because he's very clear. He speaks to you. He knows he's talking to you by what he's saying. He'll give us a little nod. He'll give us a little shoulder. He did not teach me that. It's something that I caught. And we just follow it. So now Tiffany watches his body language. I told the band, watch his body language. So that's what I mean as it relates to me, whatever I have as a mentor, placing that mantle on her.
Excuse me. As a mentee, and I know he's sitting right here, but Jonathan is absolutely amazing. First of all, I've never had a mentor. I've never had anybody in my life that I could say, this person is my mentor. I've had, of course, people that I've observed and just picked up things, along the way. But I love people making me accountable. I love structure. I love order. Because I can be all over the place, but I know being all over the place is not going to get you where you need to be. So, I'd rather be more structured. But I appreciate him so much because if I could say anything, I want to be. Pastor called Jonathan here for a reason. Pastor saw me on social media and was like, hey, I want you to come here. That's one thing. But it's another thing to say, I want this guy here because I want him to be able to do this for my church. So I want to be that individual where a pastor says, I need Tiffany at my church. Jonathan knows church, not just Pastor Bryant. He knows church, period. And so he knows what particular songs to put in certain spaces. He knows, and he's always listening, always alert. And so I am, like I said earlier, like a sponge. I'm trying to take everything in. I was really, when we first got together, I didn't know how he was. We had never worked together before this. We met each other once before in different spaces or whatever. But other than that, being here consistently working with each other, I was like, I wonder if Jonathan gonna be like stuck up. That's the only question I had because I knew I was ready to be a student. I came in like, this is new for me. This church is enormous, and this is probably the greatest platform I've ever worked on. But I'm here for a reason. And I never wanted Pastor Brian to regret looking on social media and saying, I want you here. So I'm like, Lord, I need to take in everything I got to take in. What I got to do? I got to pray, talk to Jonathan every day, text him, whatever. So in my head, the first thing that came to my head was, that's your mentor. And that's who he strongly, intentionally have been. And as a mentor, as a mentee, everything that is said to you, you're not going to like. I've had to change outfits. I've had to don't wear this dress no more, pull this dress down, And I'm okay, whatever. Because my thing is, that's what I'm here for. You know, I'm not, no, ain't no arguments, no fight back. Tiffany, I wouldn't have sung that song. You was a little off right here. Okay, cool. We not singing that no more. I'm not doing that
You telling it all. I just told one story.
No, because I love it. And I pray that every person, I mean, in my shoes, out of my shoes, has a mentor in their life like Jonathan.
But this is one thing she said. I don't know if you heard. I'm sorry to cut you off. The one thing you said, it was very powerful. You said, I was ready to be a student. And I think that when you're talking about mentors and mantles, and I've kind of made it a little churchy, and I didn't mean that, but you can't receive a mantle if you're not trying to grow up, and you can't receive a mantle if you're not ready to be a sponge or a receptacle. You know, Donald Lawrence is my mentor, and we've had some very challenging conversations because he is honest and sometimes brutally. You know what I mean? But he tells me even with his rod of correction, he'll come back and say, Jonathan, I'm just so proud of you. I just sat back and just watched you, such and such and such. That the greatest feeling is feeling like, because your mentor, and I mean, Tiffany and I, we're closer in age than me and Donald, but sometimes you feel like that is like your godfather or your uncle or somebody like that. You know what I mean? So when they speak into your life and they speak in a way where they validate the God in you, the gift in you, and to help it to come alive, is something about making sure that I don't want to use the word satisfaction, but that they are pleased with your growth. So if you are gonna be a mentee, then you have to be ready to receive what they're gonna say. But then you also have to make sure you put in the work so that you can grow up to be mentored. You know what I mean? So that they can see, whoever is pouring into you, they can see, I've not wasted my time. Like with Tiffany, I tell her all the time, your growth has been exponential. The Tiffany that I met, you are not that Tiffany. You are here because God called you to be. You're here because there's something great inside of you. And that's for anybody. People need to hear that what God has called them to be is meant to come alive. So you could be in places and it seems like everybody just shrimp, making you a shrimp and, making you a grasshopper when you're supposed to be a giant and you're supposed to be successful. And that's the thing with Pastor Brian causing us to flourish. He speaks to our be, the thing inside of us, and he causes it to come alive in us, and he challenges us, in the midst of it, but he's helping us to become what God has created us to be and not just be what we think that we're supposed to be, if that makes any sense.
It makes plenty of sense. I love that. All right.
We've given you a whole lot. I'm sorry.
You have. No, it's good. It's good. We can talk for hours. Walk me through the contribution or input from the pastor regarding the weekly worship preparations. I know we kind of hit a little bit about that, so go a little bit more in detail.
Well, okay, so we have a staff meeting every week, and we go through what is happening, not just the program, but what is happening. But as it relates to the weekly program, his really pastor's only input may be just to make an addition here and there, but for the most part, he has really entrusted that responsibility to Tiffany and myself.
Right.
He will give us constructive critique about, I don't think that song worked there. Y'all might want to try another song, or just watch your time or something like that. But very seldom will pastor, or he might say, hey, switch this around on the program. But other than that, that's about all. He really does trust us.
Right.
It's an incredible assignment. And that's why we can't take it lightly, because of the level of trust he's placed in us. And that really is his level of input. He really has, I don't want to say taking his hands off, because it's not the right terminology, but he is not a micromanager. So he really expects us to do our job, and he champions you in your job. So if I were to say his input weekly is to champion us to do our jobs, because he knows that we can do our jobs and he knows we can do them well.
And the great thing about him is he's very spontaneous. And so like he never wants every Sunday to be like the other. He always wants something to be different. So then that sparks our creativity. But let's do this. Let's put this here. And it makes it fun. Like it makes it, it's like you come here, you never know what's gonna happen. Just like this month, every Sunday has had its own theme. Like next Sunday, we're actually having a wedding after service, and he's marrying multiple couples at one time. So it's like a lot of these churches, they're not doing it, and it's not any bad thing on them, but it's just fun to be that your pastor allows you to use your creativity.
Yeah. So okay, here's a moment. So using creativity, it also requires you to use your brain.
Right.
No, for real. Because it's stuff that he's not going to tell you.
And
You
it's
have to,
simple,
you gotta,
but...
it's stuff you got to think about. Okay, so it's going to be a mass wedding. It's going to be called the Wedding in Wakanda, which says, where's your African attire? So that tells us, he's not saying it. That's saying sing songs in that space.
Right.
We don't have to, he doesn't have to tell us that.
Yeah.
He trusts that we're going to know instinctively
Mm-hmm.
to do more Caribbean or more, because if we don't know African songs, but something like with Afro beats, you know what I mean?
Right.
So that's what I mean about him trusting you to do your job.
Mm-hmm.
He's not gonna say, well, he will respond if we did not do that. Well,
Right.
it was Wedding in Wakanda. Y'all didn't hear that
Right,
part?
exactly.
You know what I
Common
mean?
sense will tell you.
Exactly. So he trusts us because he knows that we're capable and we're thinkers.
Mm-hmm.
And his thing is, don't bring me a problem if you're not gonna bring the solution with it at the same time.
Right.
So if he's saying Wedding in Wakanda, then the solution is we're solution oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how he challenges everybody in the team. So that means we gotta come with a program that reflects that we're at least feeling like we're in Africa.
Right.
Why have African attire on and we don't have those kind of songs? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So that part of the planning, that's how he is strategic as it relates to planning.
How creative can you get?
There's been nothing that he has not let us do.
That's the truth. I did praise and worship one time, and a marching band came in the middle of praise and worship, and he actually reposted it on his page. So, I mean, what else have
Martin
we
Luther
done?
King Sunday.
Martin Luther King
So
Sunday.
we opened up with John Legend's Glory.
Mm-hmm.
Turn the lights down and just spotlight on the guy, one of the guys from the praise team. Then we went into spoken word, and then we did a few minutes of praise and worship, and then we did something else.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So we had then a dancers dance. So we are, I don't know. There's no template, and I try to tell everybody this as it relates to new birth. The template is to be led, of course, by the Spirit, but also to just keep people engaged.
Right.
And again, we're not just talking to this room or the church. We're talking to the internet.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking to the globe. You know what I mean? So make sure that what it is globally sound. You know, what else have we done? I mean, when I tell you it really varies,
Yeah.
I don't think that there's any service there's not any service that's identical.
Mm-mm. He puts no limits on the creativity.
The most consistent service would be Tuesday nights.
Right.
Because
Right.
it's just a few minutes, it's about 10 minutes of worship, pastor gets up to teach, raise the offering, go home.
I mean, because we're not even done with the way our church looks. We have an entirely different new screen coming in on the back wall, which is going to allow us to be even the more creative. And then the great thing about being creative here is he's hired 3 new staff members, and so they bring their experiences to the table, and it's just like, oh, this is what I've seen, someone do here. Let's add this in here, and it's like, wow, it's just.
So he has assembled, and I call this morning in prayer, I call this the A team. He's assembled this team because he knows that all of these qualifications, and pastor says, I want people around me that are smarter than me.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows that he knows music, but he knows that that's not his area of expertise.
Mm-hmm.
So he's put a professional gospel artist along with a traveling gospel artist who are also worship leaders, and they're pastors' kids, preachers' kids.
Right.
I've already worked with him before. He already knows that's an area. Our area is probably, out of all areas in the ministry, and I say this with great humility, our area is probably the area that pastor focuses on the least.
True.
And he focuses on us the least because we are really self-functioning.
Mm-hmm.
He can give a directive, he can give a vision, and we go with it. And there's no limitations.
Right.
I think the one limitation is he doesn't want it to feel like a show. You know what I mean? And we're trying to figure that out. But we have what we have here is just it's just really beautiful what God is doing here in New
Yes.
Earth. It really is. It really is.
Awesome. Here's my last question. I know you spoke about Pastor Bryant reposting something on social media, and I know you talked about the internet. So I want to kind of get your input on what would you say to your millennial?
The word, there it
is. To those millennials who are looking to do what you do, who are looking to be in that corporate worship on your levels.
I would say don't move too fast. And the reason why I say that is because this platform can look amazing from a viewer's perspective.
That's good, Tiffany.
But once you're on the, what you call it on the football team?
50-yard line.
Say what now?
You said the 50-yard line.
Well, once you're on the bench or getting ready to play or whatever,
okay.
you have to have, it's certain elements you have to have before you get here. And if not, it's going to be a crash and burn. I really believe that I know that I'm here because God has me here, but it's because of the experience that I had before I got here, even the rejection, the appreciation, I've worked with a church before that was working with a program called worship planning, so I had an opportunity to look at it a little bit, but I didn't work with it as in-depthly as I'm doing now with Planning Center. So when I seen Planning Center, in my head, I was like, I've been here before. This is familiar to me. But had I never seen it, I wouldn't have been able to identify anything. I would have been lost. So I think there are certain people that we have to cross paths with before we get here. There's struggles. At one time, I was living in my car before I got here. I got a membership at Planet Fitness just to be able to take showers. I still posted pictures on social media. Nobody knew. There was a basket in my back seat where my clothes were, and I was a substitute teacher. Out of nowhere, Pastor Bryant reached out to me through my DM and was like, where are you worshiping at consistently? And I said, nowhere. He said, come rock with us. But had I not experienced that, my prayer life would have been shabby, you know what I mean? And I grew up in church, so this is not, it's not new, you know, it's familiar. My parents, they've been in church all my life. But I just believe that if this is what you want, and this is what I wanted. No lie, I had a dream that I was leading worship for Bishop Joseph Walker. But I knew I wasn't going to be at that church. I just felt like I'm going to be at a church on that level. And lo and behold, I'm at New Birth. And leading just as I seen myself in the dream. But I think people can look at us and it can be a glamour, a joy, and it is now, but there's certain things you have to go through, and I just would pace myself. I would take as much time as I need. I would get as much training, as much teaching. I would get up under whoever their favorite artist is or whoever their favorite person is, and I would just study and glean from them until you get to that space where God is like, you're ready. I wouldn't rush it. And that's the only thing that I would really encourage them not to rush it just because of what they see us doing.
I got caught up on her story. What's the question again? Make me cry in here. What's the question again about I'm sorry.
What would you tell the millennials how they can basically talk to the millennials about what you're doing now? What would you do?
Okay, I know where it's going. I'm sorry. She done took me about here. Okay, so yeah, she did. Oh my goodness, I'm about to start crying. Jesus. I think that there are several things. One of the issues that I have with the generations to come, they don't go to church. So how can you do this? How can you, and I can speak to some artists that are out there. How do you go get up in somebody's church and lead somebody in worship and you don't I can't judge your prayer life and you talking to the Lord, but you don't have a pastor. You don't have a place where you're submitted. So then you're going to try to lead people and get people to submit to your voice, but you are not submitted somewhere. So how can people respond to you? You know what I mean? So that's a catch-22 oxymoron, whatever you want to call it. Get in a place where you can serve. Are you a tithe payer? Are you doing what you need to do? You know, and these are the bare basics. Are you salvageable So what if your life and your past is shabby? Are you able to let it be cleaned up so that you can be used?
That's good.
Are you, and I guess these are rhetorical kind of things, but I'm just saying, are you authentic? Do you know your voice? Do you know your style? Do you know who you're called to? So every millennial is not called to a big church. You know what I mean? Some millennials are called to some smaller churches. Are you familiar with different styles of worship? Have you done some studying yourself as it relates to worship leading? And have you invested in yourself? Have you gone to a conference? Have you built relationships with other worship leaders? If you play the guitar, do you play in more than one key? You know what I'm saying? Like these different things. The preparation piece is very, very key as it relates to you being a millennial I shouldn't use it, but on a platform. Let me just say it that way.
Right.
Have you done all of the behind the scenes work on you? Because it's some stuff that you got to tuck away. You can't give everybody everything. That's the first time I ever heard Tiffany's testimony. You just can't. You can't tell it all. You know what I mean? Are you mature enough to know when to not talk? Do you have the word in you? I tell Tiffany all the time. I'm like, so in the exhortation, if you're exhorting, then the word ought to come out at some point.
Right.
You know how much word is in you, and have you done it before? If you want to do it, then you need to start putting yourself in a place where you can do it. But you don't need a mic to be the worship leader. If you want to do it, get in the background. Let me see what you can do in the background first, before you get up here and try to lead people and do what we do. Let me see what you. Do you come on a regular basis? Do you come to choir rehearsals on time? Are you dependable? Like those are the things that I would challenge millennials that are interested in being worship leaders, because those things matter.
Right.
Those things matter. People watch everything that you do. Going back to Tiffany, the one thing she was talking about, because she had one dress on, right? And it was a little short, so she leaned back. Okay, we gotta wrap it up. Okay. So she leaned back, and I said, oh. So I did not embarrass her. I leaned over to her and I said, "Don't ever wear that dress to church again."
No, he said, "Don't ever wear that shirt."
Oh.
Oh no. I was like, oh my God, it's too short.
Okay, so I said shirt. Okay, I stand to be corrected. But in that sense, I was helped, but at the end of the day, I was helping her. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if she could see me helping her, because I'm watching people, and I told her this eventually. I said, I'm watching people watch you, and they're pulling away from you.
Right.
You're trying to talk to an audience. You want them to come closer to you. You want
it to be received.
So one of the things that I don't do here, I don't wear distressed jeans where I got my knees out and all that kind of stuff. You know, if I may have one hole or something, but it's not like big. I wear jeans, but I'm mindful of all of that. I don't wear a whole lot of I wear sneakers sometimes on Sundays, but I don't always wear sneakers. Sometimes I wear a boot or something like that, or a shoe, because I'm trying to go halfway.
Right.
Because I want these people that I'm leading, I want them to be a part of the experience, and I want them to look at me and say, I can't do it. So millennials, are you flexible?
Right.
Are you pliable?
Right.
You know, all of these things, I think that if you want to lead people in worship, you have to have all of those qualifications. And then you also can't be jellyback. It's going to be some stuff that you might hear that you may not like, but you have to be able to receive it and not be a trash can, but receive it and sift out, separate the wheat from the tares. You got to sift out. There's still something in that the person said, although they might have not have said it the right way, there's still something that you can pull out, that you can use. So those are the things that I would say to millennials that are interested in doing this. Do you have those types of qualifications?
Okay. Last thing, I promise. You said something about you talked about your testimony, and my God, I've been in that place where you've been where you don't have, or not necessarily don't have, but it just looks like everything around you don't have. What's the voice? What's God's voice in that arena that pushed you, or that allowed you the opportunity to be in a worship arena now?
Okay, explain it to me a little bit more.
So you said that you were living in your car. Been there before. Not to
Right. Gotcha.
But there's a voice. I don't want to go too far off, but there's a voice that we hear that kind of like what Pastor Bryant was speaking about today about the pull and the push.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain voice that you are to hear in that moment. What's that voice sound like?
For me, in that moment, what my prayer is, I always pray and I say, God, I want you to bring a complete stranger to me that I do not know to confirm my prayers. One reason why is because for me, I have trust issues in certain areas. So if I know the person, I'm like, I'll question them. I had this one lady prophesy to me in church, and after church I was like, how you know that's what God told you? Because I'm like, you know me. You know certain things about me, so I don't. So I always pray, God, when you answer me, let it be somebody that I don't know. Just bring a complete stranger. And for me, that's what happened. I didn't know Pastor Brian. I never met him, but that's just how it happened. And then to even be able to hear the voice, you have to shut everything else off. It's those quiet spaces. In your, not even in your conscious mind, but your subconscious, you have to really be sensitive and take time to listen to that. Because sometimes we can be talking to ourselves and it's just our conscious. But for me, it's a stranger's voice, a person that I never met them, but that's just how God speaks to me. That's how He confirms things with me. It's normally somebody I do not know.
I know we got to wrap, but I just want to say this. My father, he relates in what you're identifying as a voice. He relates as a sign. So it may not necessarily be a voice, but he said when you start praying and you ask God for direction, like even for me to take this assignment, he said the Lord will give you a sign.
That's true.
And so it could be a telephone call, and the sign for me was the voice of my brother. My father was like, well, I mean, you could do it, son, because I still, but my father's very old school. So he's not always balanced in his thinking because he's still old school. But my brother he says, look at yourself as the answer. There's a need there, and you have to look at yourself as an answer to a need. And so when he told me that was the sign that I needed, or the voice that I needed. So I think it varies. I think it varies per person. But I will say this. If there is a voice and if there is a sign and you recognize it, when something is happening in your